This is the Tidbits in Time Almanac for October 2021. October 1st, 331 BC. The decisive battle between Alexander the Great and the Greeks versus the Persian Empire, now known as Iran, under Darius III, was fought near the village of Gaugamela. Despite being greatly outnumbered, Alexander emerged victorious due to the employment of superior tactics and the clever usage of light infantry forces. The victory also resulted in and solidified the position of Alexander as king of Asia. October 2nd, 1872. Fictional character Phileas Fogg wagered, "I'll bet 20,000 pounds against anyone who wishes that I will make a tour of the world in 80 days or less." Then consulting an almanac, he continued, "As today is Wednesday the 2nd of October, I shall be due in London in this very room of the Reform Club on Saturday the 21st of December at 9:15 p.m., or else the 20,000 pounds will belong to you." October 3rd, 1925. Simone Segouin, mostly known by her codename Nicole Minet, was only 18 years old when the Germans invaded France. She is still alive, and she is celebrating her 96th birthday today. Her first act of rebellion was to steal a bicycle from a German military building and slice the tires of all the other bikes and motorcycles so they could not pursue her. She found a pocket of the resistance and joined the fight, using the stolen bike to deliver messages between resistant groups. She was an extremely fast learner and quickly became an expert at tactics and explosives. She led teams of resistance fighters to capture German troops, set traps, and sabotage German equipment. As the war dragged on, her deeds escalated to derailing German trains, blocking roads, blowing up bridges, and helping to create a German-free path to help the Allied forces retake France from the inside. She was never caught. After the war, she studied medicine and became a pediatric nurse. October 4th, 1941. Roy Alton Blount Jr. was born in Indianapolis, Indiana. He has written 24 books, mostly humor and satire, and his articles have been featured in 166 magazines and other periodicals. October 5th, 1582. This date does not actually exist. Our yearly Gregorian calendar does not exactly match the solar year, although it does not miss it by much. But after many centuries without correction, the calendar in use back then, the Julian calendar, had gotten pretty far off of the celestial calendar. In response, Pope Gregory XIII decreed, they could do that back in those days, that the day after October 4th, 1582 would really be October 15th, 1582, effectively wiping out 10 days with the stroke of a pen. In the months after, those who needed to refer to dates under the previous Julian calendar would use OS after a date to indicate it was old style and was to be interpreted under the old calendar rather than NS, the new style. As a result, October 5th, 1582 never existed in the Gregorian calendar that we use today. Here in the colonies, we did not start using the new calendar until September 14th, 1752, which by decree of the British Calendar New Style Act of 1750 followed September 2nd, 1752. By then, they had to add even more days. The 170-year gap between the initial adoption on continental Europe and final adoption in the British Empire made for interesting reporting of history. For example, William III of England arrived in England on November 5th, 1688, Old Style, after setting sail from the Netherlands on 11 November, New Style. My thanks to Dan Blomer, USAFA 1980, for pointing this out to me. October 6, 1952. The Mousetrap premiered in the West End of London, based on a short story by Agatha Christie, who wrote it as a birthday gift to Queen Mary. The author thought it would have a run of about 8 months, but it turned out to have the longest run of any play ever, racking up 27,500 performances as of September 18, 2018. It was temporarily on hiatus starting March 16, 2020 because of the coronavirus plague. The story is a whodunit murder mystery set in the 1950s at an English manor house. Because of its longevity, traditionally the cast changes once per year, giving other actors and actresses a chance at playing the characters. At the end of the play, there's a twist ending, and the audience is sworn to secrecy not to reveal the culprit so that future audiences can experience that anew. October 7th, 2021. National Bring a Bible to School Day. More than 514,000 elementary, middle, and high school kids participated last year, representing more than 50,000 schools. This is an entirely student-led movement. The verse chosen for this year is 1 Timothy 4:12. Let no one despise you for your youth, but set the believers an example in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity. October 8th, 1956. Don James Larsen pitched a perfect game in the World Series, leading the New York Yankees to a win over the Brooklyn Dodgers. It is the only no-hitter and perfect game in World Series history. His career statistics show him to be a mediocre pitcher, but on that particular day, he says he had the most control he had ever felt on the pitching mound. October 9th, 1873. Charles R. Walgreen Sr. was born near Galesburg, Illinois. He worked and saved for years, then still had to take out a huge loan to buy his own drugstore on the south side of Chicago in 1901. But he and his wife Myrtle made a go of it, introducing such innovations as lunch counters and soda fountains. In 1922, one of his employees created the first malted milkshake, which was a roaring success. October 10th, 1985. Jet fighter aircraft from the USS Saratoga intercepted an Egypt Air Boeing 737 carrying 4 Palestinian Liberation Front PLF terrorists from Egypt to safety. These 4 had pirated the Achille Lauro cruise ship and murdered American Jewish passenger Leon Klinghoffer. They were given aid by the Egyptian government after their threat to kill additional passengers. The U.S. jets persuaded the captain of the Egypt airplane to change his flight plan to land at the NATO joint base in Simone, Italy. SEAL Team 6 met the plane on the runway, but they were surrounded by Italian police and Italian army soldiers. Diplomats agreed by phone that Italy had jurisdiction. The Americans had to stand down, and Italy allowed the terrorists safe passage out of Italy to Yugoslavia, a country that had an anti-extradition agreement with the Palestine Liberation Organization. October 11, 1906, Charles Haskell Revlon was born in Boston, Massachusetts. He founded a company in 1932 that grew into Revlon and launched the cosmetics industry. Women have used beauty enhancements and coloration for thousands of years. But Charles Revson helped usher in the modern era of makeup, nail polish, and other beauty products. October 12th, 1216. King John of England lost the crown jewels in an estuary called the Wash, a bay on the east coast near Lincolnshire. Legend has it that the jewels were in a baggage cart that did not survive being overtaken by a high tide. October 13th, 1792. The cornerstone for the White House was laid. It disappeared the next day. And in one of the great unsolved mysteries of the country still, nobody knows where it is. October 14th, 2012. National Dessert Day. Forget about your diet. You can start again tomorrow. October 15th, 1902. New Orleans Blues, the first jazz composition committed to paper, was performed by Jelly Roll Morton. He wrote and performed before the days that the Deep South was absorbed by the more modern society, greatly hurried by the widespread use of air conditioning and the construction of the interstate highway system. October 16th, 1991. George Pierre Hennard drove his truck through the window of a Luby's cafeteria in Killeen, Texas. He began to methodically fire at people, reloading several times. He eventually killed 23 people and wounded 20 more. If even just a few customers or employees in that restaurant had been armed, the outcome would have been much different. October 17th, 2008. Virginia Postrel wrote The Power of Glamour and went to TED and talked about it. On a previous month, I asked you to put November 18, 2021 on your calendar, but alas, we have to postpone. I hope the coronavirus plague is over next spring, so please save the date of May 12, 2022. The theme is glamour, and it will be formal, black tie. The ladies will be wearing evening dresses in vibrant colors, along with perfume and jewelry. There will be flowers, and the men will be in tuxedos with black leather shoes or cowboy boots that are allowed if they're black. Everybody is welcome to attend, and if you want an invitation, just let me know. October 18th, 1934. Chuck Swindoll was born in El Campo, Texas, a pastor who started a radio program in 1979 called Insight for Living. That radio reach is now more than 2,000 stations around the world in 15 different languages. He currently is Chancellor of Dallas Theological Seminary. October 19th, 1931. David John Moore Carnwell, who used the pen name of John Le Carre, was born in Poole, Dorset, England. He was a spy for MI5 and later MI6. He wrote 25 spy novels, 10 of which were made into films, and there were 6 television adaptations. In 1964, his career as an intelligence officer came to an end as the result of the portrayal of British agent covers to the KGB by Kim Philby, the infamous British double agent, one of the Cambridge Five. Le Carre depicted and analyzed Philby as the upper-class traitor codenamed Gerald by the KGB, the mole hunted by George Smiley in Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy of 1974. October 20th, 2018, National Pepperoni Pizza Day. Pepperone is Italian for bell pepper. In the United States, pepperoni sausage is a variety of salami made from cured pork and beef mixed together with paprika and other spices, though not usually bell peppers. On average, Americans order about 36% of their pizzas with pepperoni. To celebrate this special day, many pizza restaurants and chains offer great discount prices. October 21st, 1805. The Battle of Trafalgar. England, France, and Spain had been contesting control of the European hemisphere for centuries. During the 1800s, Napoleon won most of the landmass, then later to lose it. The influence of Spain faded, and Britain won control of the seas after its victory at Trafalgar. An area of London became known as Trafalgar Square in honor of the battle, and there's a huge monument to the commanding admiral Horatio Nelson. October 22nd, 2021, International Caps Lock Day. You can celebrate by cleaning your computer keyboard, paying special attention to the far left side. But do not forget to also clean and groom your friend Numlock. Or you can plan whatever other festivities that you want, but please stop shouting. October 23rd, 1823. The Prudent Person Rule was established in the U.S. after John McLean died on this date. He left an estate of about $50,000 in trust for his wife, with the income to be paid to her during her life, then the principal to charity, Harvard College and Massachusetts General Hospital. The trustees invested in stocks and other financial instruments. After the death of the wife, the principal of the trust had declined. Thus, the remainders, Harvard and MassGen, did not get the whole $50,000. So they sued the trustee. The court held, quote, all that can be required of a trustee is that he shall conduct himself faithfully and exercise a sound discretion. He is to observe how men of prudence, discretion, and intelligence manage their own affairs, not in regard to speculation, but in regard to the permanent disposition of their funds, considering the probable income as well as the probable safety of the capital to be invested. Do what you will, the capital is at hazard. October 24th, 1838. Annie Edson Taylor was born in Lockport, New York. On her 63rd birthday in 1901, she became the first person to go over Niagara Falls in a barrel. It was a publicity stunt that she later regretted, saying, "If it was with my dying breath, I would caution anyone against attempting the feat." October 25th, 1854. The British suffered a disastrous cavalry action under the command of two generals during the Battle of Balaclava in the Crimean War against Russian forces. The attack by the British was somewhat successful, but at a terrible cost of dead and wounded. The event inspired Alfred Tennyson to write his famous poem, The Charge of the Light Brigade. Incidentally, a league is about 3 miles, and light cavalry is horses without armor. October 26, 2021. President Joe Biden may, and he's made no announcement yet, issue the appropriate executive order in compliance with the President John F. Kennedy Assassination Records Collection Act of 1992, and direct all government agencies and entities to make public and unredacted all complete files and records pertaining to the assassination of John Fitzgerald Kennedy as directed by this act. This information shall be transmitted to the National Archives for full public disclosure, to be included in the Archives collection and made available for public inspection and copying. October 27, 1962. Major Rudolph Anderson was shot down in his Lockheed U-2 aircraft over Cuba. He was the only person killed by enemy fire during the Cuban Missile Crisis. The shootdown of Major Anderson caused Kennedy and Khrushchev to face an escalation of the crisis, and Khrushchev backed down. The decision to shoot SA-2 missiles at the U-2 was a local decision in Cuba. Perhaps it made Khrushchev realize that he did not have full control. I was reminded of this by Bill Walker, you saw in 1972. October 28, 1919. The U.S. Congress overrode a presidential veto to pass the Volstead Act, prohibiting the sales of alcohol. It led to widespread trafficking in illegal substances, much of which was imported, corruption of law enforcement, and overloading courts and jails. This experiment in social engineering was considered a complete failure, and the 18th Amendment was canceled by the passage of the 21st Amendment on December 5, 1933. October 29, 1969. The Internet began with a connection allowing bits of data to flow between computers at UCLA and the Stanford Research Institute. Its first applications were ARPANET, developed by the Department of Defense. By the end of the year, there were 4 sites connected, then 10 the next year. Soon there were applications like file transfer utilities and email, though the @ symbol was not adopted until 1972. October 30th, 1735. John Adams was born in Braintree, Massachusetts. He was the ringleader of the surge toward the founding of the country, beginning with protests against the Stamp Act in 1765, the Boston Massacre, and the Boston Tea Party. He stood and spoke for 2 hours without notes on July 1st, 1776, in favor of independence. No one knows exactly what he said that day because his words were not transcribed, but Thomas Jefferson later said, "Adams spoke with a power of thought and expressions that moved us from our seats." October 31st, 1941. Work on the Mount Rushmore National Memorial was stopped, and the monument was opened to the public. Sculptor Gutzon Borglum carved the likenesses of Presidents George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Theodore Roosevelt, and Abraham Lincoln into the granite of a mountain in a remote area of South Dakota. The original design was never completed because of the death of the sculptor and because World War II intervened. This has been the 2021 October edition of the Tidbits in Time Almanac. Click More down below for links to each day's tidbit.